I am Maya 58, and I have learned that weddings reveal more than velvet and vows. At the Drake under chandeliers that pretend to be stars. My brother's fiancé lets one small word slip and aims it at me. Loser. I do not flinch. I straighten my necklace, feel the Technova brooch cool against my skin, and watch the room listen. Logan wants peace. Blake wants optics. A boss with winter water eyes notices more than flowers. Place cards shift emails, gain timestamps, and etiquette becomes armor. I choose silence on purpose, because timing is a craft and witnesses matter. What happens when a single word tries to shrink a woman who knows the rules better than the men who quote them? Walk with me from the aisle to the ballroom through music and murmurs, and I will show you how respect is earned, how boundaries are drawn, and how a room can turn on one clean sentence. The chandeliers in this Drake throw a soft frost over everything, a glitter that settles on bare shoulders and linen tablecloths, and the confidence of men who like to hear themselves talk. The string quartet hums in the corner, a melody so practiced it disappears into the glassy chime of champagne flutes. For a moment, it is all easy sparkle, the kind you can carry in a pocket like a lucky coin. Then the room stutters. Not a full stop, just a skipped beat, the way a heart does when someone says the wrong word at the wrong time. Blake is 3 paces away with his colleagues gathered like a school of fish, all forward tilt and hungry eyes. He looks at me and the corner of his mouth tugs up, not kind, not curious, just amused. He lets a single word fall with a playful sneer, a small word that tries to make me small with it. Loser. Logan hears it. I can tell because his lips flatten, and he stares at the floral centerpiece as if the roses might offer a way out. He has always tried to keep peace. Sometimes peace is simply silence with a bow on it. I lift my glass, sip once, and set it down. Bubbles climb the side like climbers who know the mountain. I angle my body to make room for a passing server and feel my necklace cool against my skin. Rob Calder is already moving toward us. He has the walk of a man who has been in every boardroom that matters and knows which chair belongs to him. His handshake is polite, measured, the kind bred in schools that teach you how firm a grasp should be. His eyes are a different story. They are lake water in January. They travel from the small Technova brooch at my lapel to my face, and then they rest there steady, taking a measure no one else in this circle knows to take. Blake keeps smiling. The colleagues watch him for cues the way interns study an email before they hit send. Someone laughs too loudly at nothing. Someone else adjusts a cuff and checks his phone and pretends none of these registers. A woman in blue silk pivots her wrist, and her bracelet sings against the stem of her glass. The quartet threads a new movement and the room breathes again almost. Rob begins a greeting, the polite beginning everyone expects at a wedding. Nice to he gets that far, and I step back half a pace to let a pair of older guests pass between us. It is instinct and etiquette. My mother taught me to make room for people who have walked farther than I have. The couple glides through grateful without saying so. Rob's mouth closes on the rest of the sentence, and he gives me a very slight nod as if we understand the same rule at the same time. Not here. Not yet. Phones rise around the edges of the circle, casual at first, then purposeful. Not pointed at me, not exactly, but angled to catch what might happen if something did. I look at Logan. His shoulders are tight beneath the jacket our father would have approved of. He does not move toward me. He does not move toward Blake. He is split in 2 neat halves and trying to hold both together with the force of a jaw muscle. Blake leans on his own grin. It is the kind of grin that has charmed hostesses into better tables and assistants into staying late. He watches me for a flinch. I do not give him one. I lift the corners of my mouth the way you do when the photographer says 1 more and you have already done 3. My hand rests lightly on the back of a chair. A tiny run in the satin ribbon brushes my finger, no one else would ever feel it, and I think how imperfection is always there if you let your palm find it. Rob's colleagues have joined him now along the perimeter. They are not introduced to me. Not yet. I can feel the questions settle over them like soft dust. The brooch, the posture, the absence of apology. Something does not match the word Blake chose. People know when a chord is off, even if they cannot name the note. A man in a charcoal suit blinks as if he needs to clear a lens. The woman in blue silk takes a breath and does not let it go. A server passes with canapes that glisten like patent leather. I make room again, one step and a turn of the shoulder. Manners are not decoration. They are a way of taking control without raising your voice. Blake shifts his weight, a small, impatient tapping that does not belong to a happy groom. His laugh comes again, a half step too sharp, and dies before anyone can attach themselves to it. The quartet modulates. The chandeliers flicker inside their own crystal and cast star maps on the floor. Logan meets my eyes for a fraction, and in that thin space, I see the boy who brought me a cracked trophy once proud, despite the chip asking if it still counted. It did then. It does now. I give him the kind of smile a sister gives a brother when there are too many witnesses for the truth and no one ready for it anyway. Later it says, "Not because I'm afraid, because timing matters." The circle loosens by a measure. Conversations restart in fragments. Wine is poured. Someone mentions traffic on Lakeshore Drive. I adjust the strap of my dress, and the brooch catches a tiny click, a reminder of its weight. Rob glances at it once more, then he turns slightly to greet a couple from the board. His expression is neutral, but I can feel his attention remain like a hand at the small of my back. Present, steady guiding without pushing. The air changes. It is the smallest thing. A shift in temperature only a few degrees, the way a room feels when a window is unlatched that you did not notice before. I breathe it in. There is a hum in it that has nothing to do with strings. It is the sound a moment makes when it chooses a direction. I let the hum pass through me, and I do nothing to hurry it. There is too much night left to spend. There will be time for everything that needs a spotlight. A toast is called somewhere on the other side of the ballroom. The clink travels like a wave and everyone turns toward the sound. I turn too. My smile stays in place. My feet know where they are. The chandeliers keep their quiet frost. And the word that was meant to shrink me recedes into the velvet noise of the drake unanchored, already smaller than the room that swallowed it. The Lakeview grill glows like a postcard from a better-behaved decade. Brass lamps, leather booths, a view of the harbor that makes even February feel like a promise. I arrive first because old habits do not loosen easily. Logan waves from a corner table, the one he chose, because it is quiet enough to hear yourself think. He looks relieved when I shrug off my coat. The relief tells me he has been holding his breath. Blake arrives with the wind at his back. He brings the kind of energy that turns heads and empties a room of patience. He kisses the air near my cheek, as if we are closer than we are. He compliments the lighting like a man who believes praise is a currency he prints in his basement. He talks before he sits. KPIs, pipeline momentum, cost optimization. He tosses the terms on the table like chips and waits for the dealer to bless him. Menus open and close. The server appears with water and the kind of smile that has seen it all and will see it again. I ordered soup and a sandwich, tomato bisque and a half-turkey club. Logan orders chicken he cannot mispronounce. Blake reads my choice like it is a confession. He wonders aloud if simple meals mean simple means. He thinks he is being charming. He is not. He pivots to life coaching without a pause. At your age, he says, as if my years have become a room I should not enter. He suggests a weekend workshop that promises to align purpose and productivity. He assures me he knows a speaker. There is always a speaker. I watch the candle flame bend under his breath and straighten when he shifts his focus. I ask about the people in his department who have been there longer than he has. I ask how he measures their value. His voice lowers. Senior dead weight. He says it like a diagnosis. Efficient, clinical, merciless. Under the table, Logan squeezes his hand. Above the table, Logan changes the subject in the way of gentlemen who have learned how to pull matches from the hands of boys. He asks about the wedding playlist. He mentions his mother's favorite song. For a moment, Blake gives him a smile that looks almost real. The food arrives. The bisque is warm and honest. The sandwich is cut on a bias that remembers home, etc. I take my time. Blake does not. He eats like winning is something you do with your teeth. Between bites, he itemizes his week. Flights, forecasts, a client dinner where he turned no into yes before dessert. He tells the server that budgets matter. He says it loudly enough for the neighboring table to hear. The server's face does not move, but a tiny shadow crosses it like a cloud over a field. He notes Blake's tone the way a camera notes light, without judgment, without forgetting. Logan asks if we want coffee. Blake waves it off. He has calls. He always has calls. He runs a fingertip around the rim of his glass and looks at my plate as if he can index my future from crumbs. He asks about hobbies and then translates the word into a sentence that means ways to pass the time when you are past your prime. I let the sentence pass by like a jogger on the lakefront. I do not chase it. I asked him again about his team. I ask whether he mentors anyone who reminds him of his future self. He laughs at the idea and then corrects himself. He says he believes in hungry talent. He says hunger beats tenure every time. He does not say fear. He does not say the part about what happens when the room stops laughing. The check lands between us with the soft authority of final things. Blake grabs it so fast the leather folder clicks. I got it, he says with a sigh that aims for noble burden and lands on staged generosity. I reach for my bag out of politeness, not need. He waves my hand away and leans back the hero of his own movie. The server takes the card and goes. Logan watches him go as if the slip of paper might carry more than numbers. We sat a minute longer. Boats nod outside like old men in church. Blake checks his watch and stands. He tells Logan to text him later with the seating chart. He tells me he will send a link to that workshop. He says it will do wonders. I fold my napkin and set it on the table. The server returns with the receipt and a pen that has lost its cap. He places it down with the care of someone setting a boundary without a speech. Logan squeezes my shoulder when we step into the cold. I pat his hand once. We do not speak about the word Blake used for men and women who built the ladders he climbs. We do not speak about the way a sigh can be a stage. We speak about parking and whether the snow will stick. The harbor is dark and patient. The night has the feel of a road with more turns than the map suggests. The apartment faces the water, a long blue pane that pretends to be calm while February pushes whitecaps against the break wall. I set my bag on the dining table and turned on a lamp. The light falls over paper wood and the faint salt ring left by a glass I should have moved last night. I slip off my shoes, listen for the hum of the radiator, and feel the quiet settle into my ribs. In the kitchen, the kettle starts its small storm. I pull a binder from the cabinet, the one with tabs that read, Governance, Ethics, Conflicts. The printer wakes from sleep and shuffles to life. I print the policy on conflicts of interest and the section that bars favoritism and family interference. I print the relevant pages of our code of conduct, the passages about dignity and age discrimination that most people skip. I sit with a pen and draw clean lines under the words that matter. The safe waits in the hall closet, a black box with a keypad that has memorized the weight of my fingers. I open it and bring out a velvet case the color of midnight. Inside is the Technova anniversary brooch, small as a coin, heavier than it looks. I set the brooch on the table and place the fresh printouts beside it. The paper and the metal look at each other like old colleagues who understand the stakes. The kettle clicks off. I pour water, let the tea steep, and breathe the steam until my hands are steady. I call Rob. He answers with the sound of his own office around him, that padded hush of carpet and discipline. I tell him what needs telling. The dinner, the words Blake chose for the people who built the scaffolding he climbs, the way he used budget like a blade, the way he tried to read a life from a menu. I tell him I do not want a hallway verdict. He says he will not render one. He says he wants eyes on the behavior and a process that can stand upright when the room gets crowded. I tell him we will see each other on the wedding day. He understands the sentence that comes after the period without my saying it. When the line goes quiet, I write 3 lines in a small notebook. No scenes, no speeches, no shortcuts. I underline each one. Strategy is not a fever. It is breathwork and posture, and choosing the inch that matters over the yard that flatters. I will not move the inch until the hour asks for it. I carry the velvet case to the mirror and pin the brooch to a dark blazer. The pin resists, then holds. The glass shows a woman whose face has learned that stillness is not surrender. I practice the sentences I am willing to spend. Nice to meet you. Good to see you. Lovely ceremony. Each one short enough to float light enough to hide the weight beneath it. I practice the pauses that let other people reveal themselves. The pauses that make a room speak. My phone lights and dims with a handful of messages. Logan has sent a photo of a tie he is not sure about. I tell him the Navy works. I do not mention dinner. He does not either. The quiet between us is not avoidable. It is an agreement built over years of shoveling the same winter sidewalk from 2 ends until we meet in the middle. I type a longer text and delete it before the second sentence. He does not need to carry my strategy and his heart at the same time. I open the bottom drawer and pack a small wedding day kit. Spare stockings, a compact, 2 safety pins, a travel stain pen. I add a copy of the policies not to brandish, but to remind myself that the backbone here is not personal. It is structural. I slide the notebook in with the 3 lines and close the zipper. The brooch returns to its case for the night. On the balcony, the air is sharp enough to make my eyes water. Lakeshore Drive murmurs a steady lullaby. A gull rides the wind between buildings and laughs at something only gulls think is funny. The tea cools on the railing. I hold the cup anyway because warmth is a kind of courage on a Thursday in Chicago. I let the cold tell the truth. Not every wrong deserves a contest. Some deserve a light and an audience. Inside, I lock the papers in the safe and spin the dial. I place the velvet case on top for the morning. I set an alarm and then another, both generous enough that nothing will be rushed. The apartment hums the kind of sound you only notice when you have chosen to hear it. I turn off the lamp by the window and watch the room slip from gold to gray. The lake answers with a darker gray of its own. I think of timing as a bridge that must hold until the right footsteps cross it. I leave the room as it is tidy and waiting, and let the night finish its work without me. Drake shows its bones in daylight. No chandeliers glitter, just clean lines. Folded linens, a ballroom mapped in tape and possibility. Jenna stands with a tablet at the head table stylus, tapping eyes bright with the optimism of people who turn chaos into place cards. Liam, the banquet manager, reviews a clipboard and keeps his voice level. He explains that changes will be honored by email only, no exceptions, because paper holds better than memory when a room is full. Logan arrives a shade late, cheeks pink from the wind. Blake follows with his usual weather system, that rush of confidence that scatters patience in a neat radius. He scans the schematic and calls it leadership optics. He wants his boss near the stage, wants colleagues clustered so the cameras find them without trying. He says, "This is how momentum looks in a room." Jenna nods and asks him to show her with the stylus, not his hands. Liam stands a step back, pen still ready to record what becomes real. I count rows without meaning to. I find the seats for my parents and point out the sight line to the aisle. It matters that they can see. Jenna agrees. She marks their places with a soft green tag that reads, "Honored." It is a small word. And enough. Elaine arrives in a cashmere wrap and a smile that asks for peace. She takes my arm and says quietly that sometimes the best gift is to let a thing go. I breathe once and feel the old habit rise, the one that bends rather than breaks. I tell her we will keep the day gentle where we can. She looks relieved and moves off to admire the florals, grateful to have a task that does not involve conflict. Blake begins his campaign. He circles a set of round tables with his stylus and speaks about proximity and influence as if they are new inventions. He places his boss at the center and builds a ring of colleagues like a solar system. He glances over to see whether I mind orbiting farther out. Logan watches him, then looks at me, then at the floor. Liam repeats the rule. Any change must arrive by email. He says it evenly with practice because even rules need reinforcement in rooms with strong personalities. We walk the floor. Jenna narrates traffic patterns so grandparents do not get pinched in bottlenecks. She keeps a kind tone even when Blake asks for an extra buffer between his group and the band. She tells him the stage is fixed, the tables are not, but safety is a priority. He nods, as if safety is something he personally invented last year. My phone buzzes in my pocket. Jenna is emailing a revised chart. I open it and see my name slid to a table near the service corridor, a polite exile among cousins we hardly see. It is clean work. No one would call it punishment if they did not know how these things breathe. I look up at Logan. I ask only one thing. Is this what you want? He rubs his jaw and says he wants no drama. It is honest and it lands on my shoulder like a small stone I can carry. Blake leans on him. He frames it as hosting. He says the optics will help his trajectory and by extension the family. He says everyone benefits when the center reads polished. Logan nods, pulled between the gravity of love and the pressure of presentation. His phone is in his hand. He types a brief approval to Jenna. I watch the message leave the screen and imagine its little trail in the air. Paper now. A choice that will have a timestamp no one can argue with. I let the breath go. I ask Jenna to keep my parents at the honored table with a clear sightline. Jenna confirms and tags their names again. I ask Liam to send a summary of the final placements by the end of day. He says it will be done and that he will hold the floor plan at the captain's station. I send a short email to all of them that repeats the rule. All changes in writing. I thank them for their work. I keep sentiment off the page and let structure do the talking. Blake is already half turned toward the exit, pleased with his map. Logan lingers. He asks if I am all right. I tell him the day belongs to him and that I will stand where the room needs me to stand. He closes his eyes for a second, then opens them with that look he gets when he makes a promise to himself. Elaine returns with a tiny sprig of greenery she wants tucked into place settings. She is smiling again. She thinks the hard part is over. I touch the tag that says honored and picture my father's hands on the tablecloth, steady and sure. Jenna gathers her things and says she will send the updated chart within the hour. Liam checks the time and heads for his staff briefing. The ballroom exhales. I step into the corridor, cool air meeting my face. The lake is a gray ribbon through the window at the end of the hall. I stand a moment not to reconsider anything, just to catalog the feeling of a line being drawn in ink. Technova's 10th floor conference room smells like fresh coffee and printer heat. Frosted glass, a long table, a screen waking to life. Dana Patel stands at the far end with a remote in her hand, a stack of folders at her elbow, and the kind of stillness that says she has done this before and will do it again. I take a seat near the wall where the air vent hums. I am present but not centered. That is the point. Blake arrives with a tablet and 2 colleagues in his wake. He chooses a chair with a clear sightline to the screen and smooths his tie as if the fabric might adjust the facts. Noah slips in behind him and nods at me once, a quiet signal on a busy morning. Rob joins by video from a smaller room down the hall. His image sits square in a pane of light hands, folded eyes steady. He says good morning with the kind of even tone that keeps a room honest. Dana begins with markers that matter. Equal employment opportunity. Age discrimination in Employment Act. Company policy on dignity and respect. She does not read them like a ceremony. She places them like signposts so no one can claim they missed the turn. She clicks to the next slide. A screenshot fills the screen. A line from an email that carries Blake's name and yesterday's date. We are carrying senior dead weight. The words sit there without embroidery, The room reduces its breathing to a polite minimum. Blake clears his throat. He explains the phrase as a shorthand for efficiency. He says he is building a hungry team and that he has targets to meet. He frames his language as urgency. He calls it a wake-up call for a department that lacks fire. Dana listens without nodding. When he is finished, she asks how he measures talent. She asks how he documents performance. She asks whether he has gathered feedback from the managers who have been through 3 recessions and can still read a market in the time it takes a rookie to open a spreadsheet. Noah sends me a message that lands in my palm like a pebble with weight. He says, "This is not small." He says, "This pattern has a tail." I do not respond. My phone stays face down. The screen glows and goes dark. I fold my hands and let the room do what it came to do. Dana keeps the frame tight. She asks Blake to confirm who received the email. She asks if he has used similar language in other threads. She notes that language shapes culture and that culture drives risk. She references our policy that bars demeaning characterizations and our obligation to apply standards evenly across age and tenure. She does not accuse. She documents. Rob speaks when the questions land. He asks for the thread to be forwarded to HR. He asks Dana to pull a sample of recent communications in the same chain. He asks that a review be scheduled after the wedding weekend to avoid any appearance of personal conflict at a family event. His voice remains level. He does not rise or lean. He holds the room where the process lives. Blake keeps his jaw set. He repeats that he is hired to drive growth. He says that new talent needs space. He says legacy thinking slows the floor. His words stack neatly. They do not soften. Dana notes the stack. She requests his written description of team development plans and the metrics he uses to define potential. She asks him to send the documents by the end of day tomorrow. He agrees with a nod that lands short of contrition. A woman from compliance takes down times and names. The screen returns to the company logo. People shift their chairs by an inch as if movement can thin the air. Noah looks toward me again. His eyes ask a question he does not type. I look back to the glass and the pale city beyond it. The sky sits low and iron-colored the way it does before a change you can feel but not prove. Dana closes the meeting with next steps. HR will gather emails and summaries. Managers will be interviewed in sequence. No personnel actions will be taken today. No public statements will be made. She repeats that this is standard and that the record will be complete before decisions are considered. Rob thanks the room for their time. His image clicks away. Chairs scrape. The door opens to the hallway like a throat clearing. I stay seated for a count of 10. Blake walks past without looking in my direction. His tablet is tucked under his arm like a shield. Noah lingers long enough to say that he will send me a link to the policy packet as if I need it, which I do not. What I need is the quiet that follows a bell when the chime fades and the air remembers itself. In the elevator, I count the floors by feel. I think of the email frozen on the screen, the shape of those words in black on white. Words make rooms. They make rules. They make endings. The doors open to the lobby where a ficus holds its green in winter. I stand for a moment and let my breath match the slow spin of the revolving door. The review will come after the vows and the photographs. The process is the point. I step out into the gray and let the lake wind tell me I am awake. Morning light sits kindly on my mother's dining room table. Pins a lint brush, a sewing kit that has traveled through 3 apartments and 2 decades. Logan stands still in his shirt, while Elaine smooths a wrinkle that only mothers can see. He has that look he wore on the first day of school, brave on the outside, thinking hard on the inside. I hold the jacket sleeve so she can work the cuff. Her hands are sure. Mine try to be. The mirror leans against the wall and gives us back a family of 3. My father is missing from the glass, but not from the room. I hear his old line the way people hear a favorite hymn through a closed door. Respect comes before wealth. The words arrive without fanfare and settle in the space between us. Elaine breathes out the small sigh of a woman who has walked through many storms and kept her umbrella. I straighten Logan's tie knot and step back. He asks if the Navy is too sober. I tell him it reads as quiet strength. He nods and looks at his own reflection, testing whether he believes me. We carry the suit to the closet, and the three of us linger as if closets could offer counsel. Elaine begins to fuss with pocket squares. I steer us toward the door. Fresh air helps when nerves have opinions. We take the lakefront trail and let the water do the talking for a while. Gulls draw white lines across the gray. Runners pass with headphones and private wars. The cold settles into my coat and then forgets to leave. Logan kicks at a patch of old salt on the path and finally says what has been growing. He says Blake's side keeps asking for upgrades. He says appearances are becoming a job, not a joy. He says he wants this to be beautiful and easy, and that the easy part seems to be moving farther away. I tell him that beauty can survive without polishing. I tell him that image should not be the boss of respect. I do not mention shares or money or what I keep in a safe. I talk about chairs and doorways and how people carry one another when they are tired. He listens with that pinched look he had when he learned to drive measuring distance and risk with a brand new sense of gravity. We stop at a bench and watch a tugboat push something bigger than itself. Logan laughs once a short, frail sound and says he feels like the tug. I say that sometimes the most adult choice is to say a small no before a bigger no is required. He rubs his glove over his mouth and nods. The wind rises and clears the thought for him. His phone pings. He reads the screen. His face shifts by 1 degree the way a room shifts when a lamp is moved. He shows me the message without handing it over. Blake's relatives want more VIP guests. They want to rearrange the center tables again, just a little, just enough to be seen. Logan looks at me for less than a second and then back at the water. I can feel him decide to be his own witness. He opens the message thread. His thumbs pause. I do not speak. I watch a boy I love become the man he promised to be. He types and sends. No more changes. Respect the finalized chart. He sets the phone face down on the bench between us as if to mark the line he has drawn. We sit with it. The lake breathes. A runner's shoe taps past like a metronome that keeps time for both of us. The phone vibrates again. He does not flinch. He picks it up and reads, then puts it away. I ask if he needs me to answer anything on his behalf. He shakes his head. He says he can carry this one. The words are simple and steady. I tell him I trust his feet to know where to stand. We walked again. His shoulders ease into the coat that had looked too tight an hour ago. When we reach the street, Elaine calls to ask whether we want soup. She always makes too much when she is nervous. We say yes, and hear the relief pour through the line. Back in the kitchen, she ladles chicken and rice into bowls that have seen every holiday. She looks at Logan's face and seems to read the new calm there. She does not ask for details. She fills our bowls a little higher. Logan reaches for the napkins and folds them even. He says the day will go better if we stop moving the furniture in our minds. I say that sounds like something our father would have said. He smiles without looking up. Outside the lake holds its winter color. Inside the table holds us. The boundary has been set not with a speech, but with a few plain words that did their job. We eat while the soup is still hot. We let the quiet be a reward instead of a burden. The Drake wears a late afternoon silk scarf. The ballroom is half-dressed, rows of chairs waiting a scatter of votives in shallow bowls, a hush that belongs to rooms before a promise. In the bridal suite, I step into the dress, let the zipper find its track, and feel the fabric settle where it belongs. I pin the Technova brooch to the neckline and listen for the tiny click that tells me it will stay. The mirror throws back a woman who has learned the difference between glare and light. I smooth the hem and let my shoulders soften. Downstairs, the rehearsal walk begins and ends. People relearn how to move in pairs, and someone practices a smile that does not slip. Jenna is a field general with a tablet. She lifts her hand and a vendor appears. She lowers it, and a runner finds a misplaced box of programs. Liam checks the timing of the aisle music and the angle of the mic stand. He reminds the team that approvals live in inboxes, not hallways. His tone is kind, but not negotiable. Carla Nguyen finds me near a window that looks over the lake. She greets me with the kind of warmth bankers save for families they have known for years. She slips an envelope into my hand, a tidy packet that holds the paperwork for the couple's home fund gift. We agree without fuss that it stays discreet. She touches my arm, once a small pledge to keep our generosity quiet. Then she is gone, efficient as a tide. Blake is on the floor talking in quick bursts to a bartender about a premium upgrade. He gestures at the glassware, then at the tasting notes on a laminated card. He wants sparkling photographs better. He wants labels that signal a higher tier. Jenna meets him with contract language that has no room for wishful thinking. Liam asks him to put any new request in writing. Blake smiles the smile he uses on concierges and pushes again. The clock does not care. The room moves on. Logan arrives from a fitting with a safety pin I loaned him in his pocket. He squeezes my hand in passing and goes to stand where the officiant told him to stand. His shoulders look steady. My mother adjusts a boutonniere and pronounces it secure. She tells me without saying that she slept better last night. I nod and let her have that piece. Carla returns briefly with a small folder for my files and thanks me for trusting her desk with the details. Blake notices the handoff and gives me a smirk he thinks is private. He makes a comment about bankers being salesy as if kindness is always a transaction. I do not give the remark a place to sit. I slide the envelope into my clutch and ask Jenna whether the ushers have the final version of the program. She does not miss a beat. Of course they do. Rob arrives without entourage, a neat figure in a suit that knows how to behave. He enters the room as if the air has weight, and he respects it. His eyes find the brooch, then find mine. He gives a slight nod that could mean many things. I answer with the same. We wait inside a quiet that belongs to people who trust time. Vendors drift through a checklist. The florist trims a stubborn stem and frees a soft smell of roses. The band runs a few bars of a processional until the sound lands clean. A pair of cousins rehearse their cue and then laugh at themselves for walking too fast. Logan takes a call from a relative and keeps it short, then pockets his phone like a person who has learned where the line is. Blake continues his instruction tour and tells a server that the champagne pour should crown the flute rather than kiss it. The server listens without changing her face. Liam appears at Blake's elbow again, gentle gravity in a well-cut jacket, and repeats that any new specifications belong in an email to the venue. A notepad cannot be audited. Blake gives a small shrug and says he will think about it. I test the skirt one more time. Stepping, turning, stopping the way dancers test a floor before a show. The fabric remembers me. The brooch holds its place. I tuck a blotting paper into my clutch next to the envelope and the lipstick my mother insists reads festive. Rob speaks with Jenna about the run of the show and leaves her with a satisfied nod. He does not approach me again. He does not need to. We are both fluent in the language of patience. The rehearsal ends with the small applause people give themselves when they have learned where to stand. Chairs scrape back into order. Programs are stacked in tidy towers. Jenna thanks each vendor twice, once with words and once with a look that says she saw their effort. I take the stairs rather than the elevator and feel the banister cool under my palm. On the landing, I stop and breathe the way you do before a ceremony. The day is exactly where it should be. The signals have been sent. The silence is chosen, not empty. Morning gives Drake a clean shine. By noon, the chapel smells like cut flowers and starch, the pew bows tied in careful loops, the aisle runner as bright as a white breath. I arrive early enough to hear the quartet warm the room, then settle in with family. My mother smooths her dress as if kindness were a fabric that needs tending. My father would have approved of the hush that follows. Logan stands at the front with Blake, both of them in charcoal, and Hope. Their hands are steady, their eyes a little brighter than usual. Reverend Mark greets the room with a voice that belongs in wooden places. He thanks the families, names the weather for good luck, and asks everyone to let their shoulders drop. He speaks like a man who has married 1,000 couples and still believes in the stubbornness of love. When he turns to the two young men, something gentles in the air. Logan reads his vows without a stumble. Blake follows and keeps his posture like a promise. For a moment, none of the planning matters. The ceremony does what it was made to do. The recessional begins. Applause rolls down the aisle like a ribbon. We file out in a line that has learned its order. Someone hands me a small cone of petals pale as the inside of a shell. Outside the chapel doors, a photographer arranges us as if we were chess pieces with good manners. Pictures are taken, laughter is made, and the quartet trades, hymns for jazz. The crowd shifts toward the ballroom, toward champagne and speech-making, and the staged glow of celebration. Staging is a different kind of choreography. Staff guide guests toward place cards, while bartenders crown flutes. Jenna stands at a side table where her tablet lives, answering 6 questions at once with grace. Liam coordinates the pass of canapés with a calm that settles storms. The head table is already set to the plan we signed off on yesterday, the cards tucked at each plate, the glassware aligned like ranks at attention. I keep to the perimeter and let the machine do its work. Blake reappears with a new urgency under his tie. He scans the room, finds the cluster of colleagues from Technova, and then finds Rob near the windows. I watch the flicker of an idea show in his face. This is not about family optics now. This is about a ladder and who is standing on the highest rung. He speaks to a floor captain in a tone meant to sound collegial. He asks for a small adjustment. He says it will take a minute. He wants me pushed 2 tables farther from the head, wants his boss shifted forward by 1. He adds words like flow and visibility, as if the room itself has asked for this. Liam catches the drift before a chair moves. He steps in with a quiet firmness that can stop a parade. He requests a written approval. He reminds Blake that changes do not live in conversations. They live in emails with timestamps. He asks where the authorization will come from. Blake lowers his voice and says he will take responsibility. The words arrive with an edge that does not belong at a wedding. A server pauses with a tray of shrimp and waits for the air to smooth out. Jenna checks the chart on her screen. She confirms that nothing has changed since the final. She says the captain's station holds the plan and that her team is trained to honor the plan. I stand beside her for a breath and ask if she is all right. She says they have it. She does not look at Blake when she says it. She does not need to. Rob remains by the window speaking with a bored couple about traffic on Lakeshore Drive. He does not intervene, and I am grateful. The point is not to win a skirmish in a room full of roses. The point is to let people make choices while witnesses are present. I adjust the fall of my dress and feel the brooch cool against my collarbone. Timing is a craft. Restraint is a language I know well. Blake circles back to his colleagues, making a show of pointing out floral details as if those were the reason he crossed the room. Logan arrives with his boutonniere straight and his grin honest. He checks on the grandparents and thanks an usher who steadied a step. When the band begins the first cocktail tune, the crowd relaxes into it. Laughter returns at a level that feels natural. Plates begin to move, trays begin to empty the room, performs the job of joy. I step to the edge of the dance floor and let the polished floor hold my reflection. Chairs stand exactly where the plan set them. The head table holds its line. The evening opens like a door that knows its hinges. I keep quiet and watch what people do when the lights are kind and the rules are visible. The ballroom windows hold the lake like a framed secret. Early evening slides a silver film over the water and lays the same calm on every glass surface inside. I stand near the tall palms by the windows and let the hum of conversation roll past like a tide. The band leans into a standard, the kind that knows how to stay out of the way. I lift my glass and taste bubbles that remember the chapel and the applause and the soft ache people call happiness. Blake moves through the crowd with his practiced current. I can feel it before I see him, that little rush that makes staff step around him and colleagues lean in. He has Logan tucked close, an arm hooked over his shoulder like possession dressed up as affection. Rob walks a polite distance behind, speaking with a pair of board members who keep glancing toward the lake, as if traffic might be floating out there too. They arrive in a small wave. Logan first steady and warm. Rob next, eyes clear as winter water. Blake last smiling, the smile he saves for moments he believes will carry headlines. He gestures toward me with an open palm, the way a game show host gestures toward a prize, and introduces me in a tone pitched to carry. This is Maya. She is an unemployed loser, but she means well. Time narrows. It does not stop. It does not need to. It simply chooses a slower gear so that expressions and breaths and choices can write themselves legibly. I set my glass on a cocktail table with a clean sound that could be anything. A toast, a bell, a gate closing softly. I do not answer. Silence is a key if you use it with the right door. Rob lets his gaze touch the brooch. The metal holds the chandelier light the way a stone remembers the first strike that shaped it. Then his eyes meet mine and stay there long enough to fold a message inside a blink. He turns to the gathered faces. He speaks with the same measured warmth he uses at annual meetings when he wants the back row to feel seen. He says, and there is no hurry in the sentence, nice to meet you, she is the owner. The room tilts. Not a stumble. A tilt. Conversations fall one note lower. A woman halfway through a laugh leaves the top of it suspended in the air and then lets it go. A young cousin raises her phone an inch higher and then freezes, unsure which way gravity runs. The band holds a chord for a heartbeat too long, then resolves it as if nothing remarkable happened at all. Elaine stands 2 tables away with her hand on a chair back that does not need steadying. From where I am, I can see her mouth soften into the shape of a prayer and then recover into a mother's smile, the kind that forgives a room its clumsiness. Thomas looks from me to Logan as if he is tracking a ball in a late inning and wants to know if the sun is in anyone's eyes. My brother keeps hold of Blake's hand, but he does not step between us. He does not untell what Blake has said. He stands in the middle of all of it and believes that adults can survive the weather. For a moment, nothing else moves. Then 3 things happen at once. A server adjusts a tray so the glasses do not sing against each other. A colleague from Technova stares down at the toe of his shoe as if it has become a book he could read to the end. Someone near the bar repeats the word owner to herself like a note she intends to remember. Blake blinks. It is a small human act, and it makes him briefly beautiful. He opens his mouth and then recalculates. He searches for a joke to borrow this moment. He does not find one. Rob's face remains exactly where a leader's face belongs, open, calm, self-evidence enough. I let the quiet be long enough to teach. Then I spend the only sentence I have been saving. Respect is not expensive. The words fall softly, but I know how soft things can carry. They move like steam in a winter kitchen. They find fabric and settle in. Elaine lowers herself into a chair as if her knees have remembered a dance step. Thomas pats her shoulder once and then keeps his hand there. Logan shifts his weight and keeps his ground. He looks at me, and I nod, not to comfort him, but to bear witness. Around us, the room decides what to do. Some people pick up their conversations exactly where they left off, as if a breeze has gone through and shut a door that had been open too long. A few steps closer to Rob and ask him about the view. 2 of Blake's colleagues move away at the same time and pretend they were headed that direction anyway. A teenager near the band turns her phone screen toward her own chest, then locks it, then unlocks it, then puts it away. The band leader chooses a brighter song. It is a courteous rescue. Glasses are refilled. A photographer lifts a camera a notch lower to avoid faces that have changed. Jenna passes by with a list and the steady smile she keeps for furious days. Liam checks the path for the servers and clears an invisible obstacle with the touch of a hand. No one speaks about the sentence that just rewrote the room. They do not have to. Blake swallows once. I watch the muscles in his throat accept what his face has not decided about yet. He turns to Logan and squeezes his shoulder as if that can convince the past to edit itself. Rob drifts a half step to the side and says something easy about the light over the water. The bored couple nods and laughs in the right places. The world resumes the shape it had a minute before, except that this new shape will not forget what it learned. I pick up my glass again. The bubbles have softened. I do not mind. I tilt the rim and take another small taste. I let the music do its work on the cold corners of the room. I let the windows hold the lake steady for those who need a horizon. I stand exactly where I am and feel the floor say yes. The music smooths over the room again, but the air still holds the outline of what was said. I stand where the palms meet the windows until I see Dana move through the guests with that purposeful calm she carries like a briefcase. She stops a small step from our group, lowers her voice so it belongs only to us, and says that we will follow up formally on the next business day. Her eyes are kind and exact. She asks that we step to a side foyer to preserve the reception for its job, which is to celebrate. We follow her along a short corridor that smells faintly of lemon polish and roses. The foyer is bright and quiet, a pocket tucked just off the ballroom. Rob joins us with the polite gravity he saves for moments that require both spine and grace. Blake comes with a tight jaw and a flicker of calculation. Logan stays near him, not as a shield, just as a man who keeps his promises. Dana opens a folder and begins with simple anchors. Names, titles, the time the remarks were made where we were standing. She asks for basic statements, nothing interpretive, no arguments. Her pen moves without hurry. She notes the brooch only as an identifying detail, the way one might note a navy tie or a boutonniere. She thanks each of us for keeping voices low. She reminds us that guests are nearby who do not need to carry our work home with them. A woman in a navy sheath steps into the foyer and introduces herself as Alicia Grant, Independent Director. Her handshake is brief and clean. She speaks to the group without raising her volume. Policy before pride, she says, and the sentence lands the way a level lands on a shelf, steadying everything it touches. She confirms that no disciplinary decision will be made in a ballroom. She says HR will complete the record, then recommendations will be reviewed in the right room with the right people present. Dana asks Blake to confirm the words he used and the intent of his introduction. He answers in a careful tone that sounds like a man courting the next moment, rather than owning the last one. She asks Rob to confirm what he heard and to note the audience within earshot. He answers in a few plain lines that respect both accuracy and decorum. She turns to me and asks whether I have anything to add beyond what is already on the record. I tell her no, the sentence spoken in the ballroom speaks for itself. Phones do what phones do. Blake's side of the family has a cousin who is always first to film a football game and last to set a phone down. He is near the doorway with his camera lifted in the way people lift cameras when they want to look like they are not lifting them. Dana notices him without altering her expression. She asks a staff member to keep the corridor clear. Liam appears as if the building sent him. He guides the cousin gently back toward the reception with a hand that never quite touches his sleeve. The cousin shrugs and wanders off, broadcasting to no one and everyone. Dana opens her laptop on a console table and types with the economy of someone who trusts her own notes. She explains the next steps as she works. A meeting invitation will go out tonight for the first business day. The invite will include an outline of the process and a list of who will attend. She specifies the location, the conference room with the frosted glass that belongs to Thursday mornings in policy. She asks if anyone needs a paper copy. No one does. Our phones buzz within a minute, the calendar squares filling in with time and place and subject line. Alicia asks one more thing. She asks that we each refrain from commentary during the remainder of the reception. No explanations at tables. No pointed toasts. No confessional conversations that muddy the record before it has a chance to be complete. She says that protecting the event and protecting the process are not opposing goals. She says they are the same line drawn in two rooms. Logan thanks them both. His voice does not carry. He looks older than he did an hour ago in the way people look when a boundary costs something and they pay it anyway. Blake folds his hands, then unfolds them, then finds a neutral position that looks like endurance. Rob nods once satisfied that the matter has been moved to rails that will hold. Dana closes her folder and tells us we are done for now. She repeats the instruction not to argue during the reception. She thanks us for our composure and adds a note I recognize from 100 debriefs. The room has a memory. Treat it like a guest. We walk back toward the ballroom in a small file. The music greets us first, then the roses, then the candles that have burned down by a thumb's width since vows were spoken. I find my place at a table that was always mine on the chart and set my glass where a circle of condensation already waits. Across the room, the teenager near the band has put her phone away and is laughing with a cousin. The lake is dark now, a kind of mercy that lets the windows reflect us back to ourselves. The night resumes its shape tighter, maybe stronger, certainly ready to carry what comes next when the calendar opens its door. The conference room holds the cool light of a weekday morning. Frosted glass. Legal pads at even intervals. A carafe of water that will not be touched. Dana sits at the head with a laptop already open, posture straight voice level. Rob takes a chair to her right, quiet, and present a kind of ballast. Alicia chooses a seat at the side where she can see faces and the screen without owning the table. I sit where the vent hums a familiar corner that lets me notice without being the point. Blake arrives with a folder that tries to look like preparation. He takes the chair opposite Dana and sets his palms flat, as if he can press the day into shape. Noah comes in with a slim stack of printed emails. Ruth Alvarez follows careful in a navy blazer, the exact dignity of a woman who has carried teams through storms, while younger men learn to pronounce volatility. Dana begins with scope. Purpose of meeting. Sequence. No interruptions. She reviews the record collected so far, the line from the ballroom, the earlier communications about senior deadweight, the seating emails only as context for pattern, not punishment. She nods to Noah. He confirms the language appears in more than one thread, that similar phrasing surfaced in a performance planning chat. That tone drifts down a chain faster than facts do. He does not embellish. He points to dates and names and lets the paper do the talking. Dana turns to Ruth. No rush. Ruth speaks with the steadiness of someone who has taught people how to read a balance sheet in a room. She explains what it means to hear dead weight in a place she built over time for 15 winters. She talks about junior staff who stop asking her advice after a phrase like that circulates, not because they doubt her skill, but because they worry about being seen with a woman someone has named obsolete. She keeps it brief. She keeps it human. Blake clears his throat. He explains urgency. He admits he reached for force when he should have reached for proof. He says he was scared of losing the race he believes he is in. He names the fear of not being enough out loud. The words are clumsy and also honest. He looks smaller after he says them, and somehow more complete. Dana asks if the apology he is considering is private or public. He says he does not know the difference yet. She nods and makes a note. Rob speaks for the first time. He says results without respect are a cost, not a gain. Alicia adds 3 words that land like chalk marks. Policy, culture, accountability. I look at Blake and say, the thing I came to spend. I tell him I do not want him fired. I tell him I want him to learn and to learn in public. Then I lay out the terms that make learning more than an intention. A public apology addressed to Ruth and to the senior team delivered in a scheduled staff forum recorded in the minutes. A 6-month mentorship program where he is the learner with cultural goals written like any other KPI paired with a senior sponsor who does not report to him. Completion of bias training from a provider, Dana approves with reflections submitted in writing, not slogans. Monthly check-ins with HR to review conduct language and feedback from peers. A consolidated report each quarter to the board's Committee on People and Culture, not to measure shame, but to measure change. The room holds the proposal without flinching. Dana asks 2 clarifying questions so that timelines tie to calendars, not moods. Rob looks at Blake and asks if he understands that apology is not a finish line. Alicia repeats that none of this replaces performance expectations. It is the floor under them. Blake nods, eyes rimmed in red that he does not hide. He says he can do it. He says he will. Ruth meets his gaze long enough to say that words will be easiest today and hardest on day 60 when habit knocks. She says she will accept the apology when it is offered, and that she expects him to show up when the room is not watching. He says yes. It lands as a beginning, not a bow. Dana reads the decision with the speed of a clean verdict. 6-month probation. Reviews at 30, 60, 91, 80. Failure at any checkpoint converts to disciplinary action. Success earns removal of probation and a permanent note on leadership development completed. She sends a summary to the printer and to our inboxes while we sit. The paper arrives warm, the ink still new. Logan steps in for the final segment, invited, and on time. He takes the empty chair beside me and speaks without decoration. He says he will protect the quiet at home by action, not speeches. He says boundaries will be visible. He looks at Blake and says he believes in the work but will not carry it for him. The words are clear as stone. Dana closes the meeting with next steps and calendar holds. Alicia thanks the room for choosing repair over theater. Rob nods once satisfied. I gather my notes and feel the simple relief of rails under a heavy thing. Outside the glass, the lake keeps its winter face. Inside the room, the day has a path. 3 weeks can change a tone. The office hum shifts from winter gray to something that feels like forward. In the small auditorium at Technova, rows of chairs fill with engineers and analysts, and the quiet rustle of notepads. Ruth stands at the front with a single slide that reads Roadmap and dates that make sense. She walks us through milestones like a captain charting a familiar coast. Integration Pilot Review Scale. She speaks plainly. She asks for 2 cross-functional pods and a data set she helped build 10 years ago. She does not ask permission to be relevant. She never lost it. Blake sits in the front row. His hands are visible, empty still. When Ruth pauses for questions, he does not reach for the microphone. He nods to Noah to raise a point about resource timing. He lets Ruth answer. When the room agrees on next steps, he signs the delegation plan Dana has placed on a side table. There is an HR witness. There is a timestamp. The pen clicks, and for once it is not a performance. It is a promise that leaves a mark. After the session, Dana checks boxes on a training checklist that is more than a form. Completion date provider reflection received. She asks Blake to name one behavior he will stop and one he will start. He says he will stop reading people by labels and start asking before assuming. Alicia reviews a summary report in a glassed conference room, eyes moving line by line, as if the paper itself has a pulse. She signs the bottom and says the committee will expect the first quarterly roll-up on time. There is no flourish. Accountability does not need it. Progress has a domestic face, too. In my mother's kitchen, steam climbs from a pot and fogs the corner of the window that looks toward the lake. Elaine sets out bowls and, without ceremony, tells me she is sorry for being dazzled by surfaces. She says she knows better and will do better. Thomas rests a warm hand on my shoulder and tells me I kept the family right. He says it the way men of his generation praise a good foundation, steady and low. We eat soup that tastes like effort and memory. The table feels sturdy. On a Thursday evening, Logan and Blake invite me over. Their apartment smells like lemon cleaner and a cautious new start. Blake hands me a plate and admits that time is the muscle he does not yet have. He says he will need it. I tell him to do the work. I say it without heat. He nods and begins by clearing dishes without being asked. Logan catches my eye with a small smile that says, "Thank you for the rails, I can steer now." We talk about a movie everyone has already seen, and the best bakery on Clark, and whether winter is done, pretending it still owns the city. At Technova, the mentorship sessions begin. Blake meets with Ruth in a glass alcove where everyone can see them, and no one needs to stare. She assigns him a listening task. He completes it and sends a summary that is free of slogans. Monthly check-ins with HR add up like a breadcrumb trail. At 30 days, Dana notes improved language and one stumble corrected in real time. At 60, Alicia reads a condensed report that contains more verbs than adjectives. At 90, the mentorship pods present early wins that are Ruth's to narrate. Blake claps. He claps at the right volume and at the right time. There is quiet repair at home as well. Elaine stops worrying about who sits where and starts asking who needs a ride. Thomas fixes a sticky door. Logan takes Blake to visit his grandmother and introduces him without titles. Small things repeated turn into the structure we live inside. On a late afternoon, I stand by the lake and watch the wind draw lines across the water. The city holds its shape behind me. I think about names and ladders and the rooms we build with our words. Respect is not printed on a business card. It shows how we treat people when no one is clapping. If you have watched age or class turn into a weapon in your family or at work, tell your story. The next conversation can start in a better place if we bring it there together.